I'm David Cicilline from Providence, Rhode Island. And before I ran for mayor, I had contemplated running for Congress. And there was a reporter for a local newspaper who was doing a story. And at the end of the story, and the interview, he said, I want to ask you a question, which you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but are you gay? And I said, yes. And he said, okay. And he finished writing his story, and he called me the next day, and he said, I finished my column, but the publisher will not include in the column the answer to the last question I asked you. I wanted actually the column to include that I was gay because I was thinking of running for Congress, and if in fact my being honest about who I was going to make it impossible for me to run and win, then I sort of wanted to know that before I embarked on this journey for 2 years. And so I called the publisher and I said, I understand that you're unwilling to include in this column the response to that question, and I'm calling to tell you, to ask you why. And he said, oh, if you're asking me to include it, you're specifically requesting it, then we will. And I said, I'm not the reporter. I'm not making any requests. I didn't ask you to include that I'm Jewish or that I'm Italian, but a reporter asked me a question that I answered, and I said, why would you exclude? And he said, well, we would ask for permission if we were doing a story on someone who had a handicapped child. I sort of paused and I said, the reason you're not asking me to include that I'm Jewish or Italian and are asking for permission to include the fact that I'm gay is because you're homophobic and you think of being gay as something that is shameful or bad and you want some special dispensation for me. Well, I reject that idea, and so I don't buy into that notion at all. Despite that experience 9 years ago, I have to say that in my run for mayor and in my recent campaign for Congress, my sexual orientation was really irrelevant, and I think it demonstrates how far we've come as a community and how far we've come as a country, that in both my campaign for mayor, what people were really interested in knowing was what I intended to do about the important issues facing my city. And we're at that place now, certainly in Providence, I think, and in Rhode Island, and hopefully in more and more of the country, that people are starting to recognize that sexual orientation is irrelevant, and that it makes no difference that you should be making judgments of people based on their integrity and the quality of their ideas and their commitment to important issues, and that whether it's in public service or in other careers, that we look at the person and that their sexual orientation is irrelevant in those instances, and I think that's real progress.